I have a private jet because it helps me spread the gospel quicker.
Yeah.
You know, this kind of like convoluted thinking that allows you to keep all your money.
In the annals of time, riding social forces as they crest and crash under the shores of history, some would-be heroes stumble but manage to recover their breath. Others are reduced to the flotsam and jetsam of nostalgia. These others are our subjects. They are the vanquished, 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 vanquished.
Welcome to The Vanquished. Anders J. Lee here with Freddie G.
So happy to be here.
And we are joined by our pal Davidson Boswell.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Talking about a special figure Davidson has some expertise in.
Yes.
And that is the devil incarnate, Pat Robertson.
Pat Robertson, baby.
R.I.P.
I was just telling you before the show, don't think you heard Freddie G, but Pat Robertson said that Haiti made a deal with the devil in 2011 when an earthquake hit them. And I was like, why is the lead character from Twilight talking about Haiti right now? Because Robert Pattinson is the inverse of Pat Robertson. So yeah, that like is what sparked my interest. I was like, why would he say that? And then you do a deep dive and you're like you said, you're like, wow, there's no man closer to Satan than this guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Pat Robertson is sort of Batman. He's a rich kid who like pretends to save the world, but is really just kind of selfish.
Yeah, beating up homeless people. You know,
He probably did that in his spare time.
right? Yeah, bum fights on the Christian News Network.
Yeah, really good about keeping that under wraps. So that was your first exposure to him. I think mine was watching the 700 Club, because I grew up in a household with no cable. So you just kind of had to watch whatever was on. And sometimes that was, I think CBN may have had like a terrestrial TV feed, because I remember watching the 700 Club and it was like on whatever.
Oh, you could pick it up on the like bunny ear antenna?
Yeah.
Like, oh wow.
Yeah.
It makes sense because their business model wasn't making money off a cable. It was you sending money in.
Yes.
So you're going to want to get the most eyeballs possible so that young Anders Lee sends them $7 or whatever.
That's a great point. Or $700.
Oh, yeah.
Which I did not have, but it was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying show. Like everybody's going to hell. The rapture's coming. Unless you get with the program and send us your cash.
All these guys are characterized by very like blank eyes and like smiles filled with veneers, you know? So it really is like demonic looking.
Yeah.
And they look straight into the camera, you know? And it also has a little bit of a QVC element to it because they'll sell you like a milkshake too or whatever, or like pancake mix, you know? You're like, wait, what?
Pat had a scam shake, and I think he said it made it so he could lift a lot of weights. Yeah, Pat did, and somebody sold it to a company. I mean, it's basically just his Joe Rogan alpha brain that he sold to like some company as well.
Were there like really small bits of Bible pages ground up in the shake or something?
You can taste the Bible. Yeah. Oh, that's Mark. Yeah.
Man. What do you, Fred, as a person of Jewish heritage and faith, what was your first exposure to PR?
I think the South Park episode. There's some episode where Sally Struthers and like Save the Children, they're in space and like they're fighting the Christians in space, and Pat Robinson and the 600 Club are raising money to fight the South Park Club. Yeah, they say the 600 Club.
How they get away with it?
Yeah. I didn't remember as I looked on YouTube. You can still see the clips, and it does look like Pat and his co-host.
I'm surprised they didn't do the 6969 Club.
Oh yeah,
It was right there, Trey. Yeah. They, I mean, famously, like I would say one of the first John Oliver segments that I really loved was on Televangelists, you know what I mean? And he pioneered this, like, I have a private jet because it helps me spread the gospel quicker, you know, this kind of like convoluted thinking that allows you to keep all your money.
he did end up either with hundreds of millions or even $1 billion. So yeah, he made so much money. He wasn't poor growing up, but he made a lot of money.
I think I read that his dad was also a politician or
His
something.
dad was a senator.
Yeah.
He descends from a long line of Virginia gentry, like an ancestor signed the Declaration of Independence. Then William Henry Harrison, Benjamin Harrison, his dad's a senator, some preacher. So he really comes from,
Dude,
pure
there
American
is like
blood.
It is 100% that he would have advocated for slavery, right? Like there's absolutely no way he would not have. Like he would have fallen probably on the far right of that debate. I would imagine.
Probably some of his ancestors were for it.
Right.
Oh, his ancestors owned slave. Yeah, Virginia early on. Virginia was the first state that made the rule that if you rape your slave and have a kid, that kid gets to be your slave. That comes from Virginia. Yeah,
that's
shout
in the
out
New Testament
Project. Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, his name, Pat, was a nickname originally from his brother who enjoyed patting him on the cheeks and would say, "Pat, Pat, Pat," when Pat was a baby. And he considered going by Marion, which he was an option to him, but he thought that was too effeminate. That was John Wayne made the same calculation, and so he just went for Pat, and it's like kind of an affable choice for it to be named that.
Straight out of like a Lars von Trier, like first 20 minutes of a set, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Behind closed doors, your older brother touching you, kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. But David, you grew up in South Carolina, kind of steeped in
North Carolina.
Sorry,
but yeah, no problem. Part of a larger cultural movement. I felt like I was getting pulled along through it. There started to be these very almost like Music Man type figures that started showing up to the area of North Carolina that had. I'm from right where there's NC State, Duke, and UNC. So there's a lot of money there. There's a lot of people that are from smaller towns around the area. So there's people that come from religious backgrounds that have newfound wealth. So I would imagine that there was a group of people that saw that. So we had this guy who hailed from California who said the triangle needed God. And so he came and he set up shop there. It was called Hope Community Church. And before you knew it, like within like 5 years, they were doing it in like, it would probably be where like a minor league basketball team would play. You know what I mean? Like a stadium style, evangelical Christian, combining Christianity and rock and roll type vibe with like lights and smoke and stuff like that. And he drove a Corvette, and it was very like, for those, you would have to have been like steeped in the Pat Robertson ideology to not think that was fucked up. You know? Yeah. Like you'd have to be like, okay, I'm worthy of these material riches.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, he was like, oh, this is the devil's triangle.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I grew up like around these people. You know what I mean? Like a very obsessed. And he has since the guy whose church that I went to, he has since slept with his secretary, gotten a divorce, and is a full-on Trump supporter now.
Wow. Okay.
The circle of life.
That's he came from California.
Yeah.
People were skeptical of. I mean, I guess it's a big state.
There's a lot of Bakersfield is incredibly conservative.
Sure.
There's some areas that are Bible thumpers, but yeah, I think it was like the reverse gold rush. They were like coming to, and there was it was like George Bush, had just won. So there was this kind of like feeling in the country that like this was going to be the way, prosperity gospel was back on top after, because Clinton, it was such a moral stain, what he did. So people were like, ugh, we got to have a law-abiding, a God-fearing man back in the White House. And I think that had a larger cultural impact, and it manifested itself in kind of because it did seem like as the 90s went away and the 2000s started, the mega church really took off in a much bigger way.
Yeah, definitely became culturally hegemonic, and now it's like they have kind of everything they want in like the courts and the laws and the government.
They're still angry. They're still
they're furious because most people just are not obeying the like really personal edicts, but they control the fucking world.
Right.
Even if they can't get us to do everything they want. They can do a lot, like stop abortions from happening.
Right.
Yeah, they need the contradiction. They need to say this is a Christian country, and also Christianity is constantly under attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are the persecuted minority. And it's like, no, you've won.
Yeah, there is a thing. There was migration from it's called Bible Belt to Sun Belt. I read a book on it. And a couple of the big evangelical or pro-evangelical candidates come out of the West, Barry Goldwater and then Reagan.
Right.
Well, Goldwater was sort of skeptical of evangelicals, though. Like he was more like libertarian leaning on that stuff. So he starts Christian Broadcasting Network in the 70s, and is a very successful televangelist. Not all of them are as entrepreneurial as Pat. He does the 700 Club. The idea is if we get 700 people to send $10, then your money will keep this thing afloat. And becomes a power player in the Reagan years on the right in the Republican Party. Interviews Reagan in the White House, and
He goes to the White House to interview Reagan,
do you know if he
or
went?
Reagan comes to him.
Maybe they did a
Because that's power
satellite-
play to get Reagan to come to Virginia Beach. Be like,
Yeah, I think
worship at my feet.
They probably did like a satellite feed. I would imagine.
Yeah.
We got to find that tape. Yeah, if you were VHSs of Bob Jones and of Pat Robertson and Reagan, please let us know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Send it in. Yeah, P.O. Box. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then the other thing I wanted to say is that 700 Club origin story is such like a mythical, you know what I mean? It almost, you need like those, like, you know how Joe Biden would always talk about, oh, you know, my dad would always tell me this, or Donald Trump like saving the Central Park skating rink.
Right.
It's kind of like the impetus for his, you know what I mean? It was like, I was down to my last dollar and they swooped in and saved me.
Yeah.
And it adds to his like underdog story, even though he's the son of a senator.
absolutely. Yeah.
And a lot of sevens. Yeah, he had $70, 700. Yeah, very biblical.
Right.
And 1987 is when he kind of launches for president.
Ooh.
He's been on the Saturday Evening Post, the cover, like right when Reagan wins re-election and is inaugurated again. That's when Pat starts to kind of play the field. And there's also Hurricane Gloria happens, which is projected to hit Virginia Beach, where CBN's located, and Pat like wills it to go to Long Island is how he sees it, and he thanks God for that.
That really, I feel like we've devolved in, like, because Trump said he was going to nuke the hurricane, right? And then every time a hurricane comes to Florida, people like the government literally puts out like, do not shoot the hurricane. Like, you cannot. It is not going to respond to gunfire.
Wow.
Maybe prayer though. You know.
That's a recent development. Wow.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
See,
Don't shoot the hurricane.
Us Jews get in trouble when we're told we're trying to control the weather, but
Right.
Pat does it and everyone loves him and he gets to run for president.
Yeah, and now the Democrats have a weather machine. I don't know if you guys know about that. So there's always been politics and hurricanes have always been closely aligned. It seems anyway.
Right, not just in Miami.
Right.
But on Larry King he goes on in 1987, says he was a Democrat for 55 years, says, I didn't leave the Democratic Party, it left me. And he says apparently it was 1984 that's when the shift happened and he stopped being a Democrat, although by then he was already pro-Reagan, so I guess he was a Reagan Democrat. But 1984, there's nothing particularly left-wing about the Democrats except for the fact that they had a female vice presidential nominee. So he saw that. And she wasn't even particularly left-wing.
And was she even hot? No, I'm just
No comment.
Yeah. That's funny, man, because like I was gonna ask like what caused them to break with Carter, because like in terms of his politics, he like didn't he do like bring privatization to trucking and stuff like
Yeah.
that? Like wasn't he pretty conservative in a lot of ways? You know, he was very anti-union.
Yep.
You know, so what pissed him off?
Carter was not economically liberal. Carter does do the Playboy interview during the campaign, and he says, I lusted in my heart. And that, I think Pat does credit it back to that. I don't know if that's actually why it was, but because he had endorsed Carter, but then he says by the time the election came, he voted for Ford because of the Playboy interview.
Wow. You want to talk about a politics based on like vapor, you know, like nothingness? Like, it's so wild. Yeah.
He claims that the founding fathers of the country didn't want separation of religion and government. They just wanted a big federal church. And
They didn't want that.
yeah,
They did not want it?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. But one day he announces that to his staff that he has to collect 3 million signatures on a petition to ask him to run. So make it look like there's 3 million people out there who just organically are like, we need Pat Robertson to be president.
Right.
Like it's all just descended from God.
Bathsheba. Xerxes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to have really white names.
Right.
But he has somebody who works for him who's like, Pat, what are you doing? we don't. This is not a good idea.
Why 3 million?
Yeah,
Dude,
that was one of their main objections. Like, cut the number down, make it 1 million.
700. Yeah.
700
Oh,
people.
perfect. Yeah.
And Robertson just doesn't listen. He's like, it needs to be 3 million people.
That is 1% of the U.S. population currently. You know what I mean? Like that's fucking crazy, man.
Damn.
It's a little bit less than that, but
He thinks he could like fundraise off of them, and he tries to, but he spends 10 million getting these signatures, and then his campaign doesn't have enough money the rest of the time.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's hilarious. So like he exhausted his I guess the energy of his staff right off the top.
Yeah, signatures are basically just money. If you pay enough money, you can get people to sign stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And instead of being like, hey, this is why you should vote for this guy, just like, I need you to sign this thing, and I need 3 million of your friends to sign it too.
Oh my God, dude! Email has really changed. You know what I mean? Now it would just be like you'd be getting. Imagine signing up for those emails. You know, I get Bernie Sanders. You know, because the Bernie campaign sells that information to the other Democrats, and then you get Amy Klobuchar hitting you up. You know, but
I mean, it's even with email, getting 3 million is so
Herculean task.
Yeah, to do that before with the word processor age.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how they even attempted that.
Right.
But
forgery.
I would assume people who signed their ancestors now or whatever are still getting emails somehow.
Right. Totally. Yeah. Like snail mail.
Yeah.
But it had worked because this has been like a thing for ministries. Like you get signatures from people, but that's not a political campaign move. Instead, what he should have been doing is trying to just get soft money and appeal to corporate donors. Robertson just did not. This is what really hemorrhaged his campaign or hurt his campaign from the beginning is just a lack of money because he spent so much on this stupid thing.
Maybe I don't know how cynical he is, but maybe he was like God will provide type deal. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's a lot. But do you know how robust or big his staff was, or is it like pretty?
He had a lot of volunteers he didn't want to pay.
Whoa, shocking.
Yeah, but they did really milk the mailing list. They used a direct mail campaign, got supporters to send in a one-time contribution of $88. And if he had somehow gotten all the 3 million people to send in that amount, he would have gotten $264 million.
Chump change for today.
Oh, yeah.
A lot back then.
Yeah. But yeah, they make this thing, the 88 Club, which the goal now is to make him the God King of America.
Dude, 88 is not a good letter.
No.
Oh,
It's fucking the worst.
Yeah, that's like a Nazi sort of signifier.
Mm-hmm.
I was worried about that. I was like, okay, it was the 1988 election. Also, $88 then, it's like at least $500 today. So
Right.
it was a lot of money he was asking for.
Yeah. That's true.
One really fun thing about this campaign is it was actually the official announcement came a few blocks from where we're recording this right now.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because he and his wife had lived in Bed-Stuy for like 2 months at some point.
Pat Robertson lives in Bed-Stuy.
I think it was in like the 50s when Bed-Stuy.
It wasn't when Do the Right Thing.
No, it was not. No, but that was when he announced his campaign. Was when Do the Right Thing was like kind of, if not being
shooting,
filmed, at least being conceived.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, he went to Bible seminary in New York, and I think he sort of preached or lived in like every borough. There's something in Queens, Staten Island. It's crazy. He has a little New York City connection.
And I mean, he must because this is such a crutch of every right-wing politician or preacher is to call these places like Gomorrahs. You know, like these are like not godly places, right?
Right.
Like he didn't shit on New York.
I think it was kind of like a missionary thing.
Oh, I see. You're going to bring
we're going to bring Jesus to. And when I did this back when I was living here as a hard scrabble up and coming preacher, and Bed-Stuy has changed a lot. Like it's obviously gentrification now, but there was a point where this part of North Brooklyn was a lot whiter.
Right. They cycles of like, you know, people moved out of Bushwick when the manufacturing goes in, Hispanics move in, and then the grandsons of the people that moved away come back and start vintage record stores.
Yeah. But It's a really funny video. You can look it up on C-SPAN. He gets heckled. People just show up and start
Hilarious.
yelling. And
Hail Satan.
yeah, and you can kind of like look at that and be like, this is the problem with America. All these people who won't respect my free speech. And yeah, it's
Rosie Greer, the former football star, is there, and he accidentally calls him Robinson.
Oh, hilarious.
Also, weird to have Greer there because Greer was at the RFK assassination. So weird to bring him back for another campaign.
oh
Yeah,
that was
bad
that guy.
luck, dude.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a bad luck charm.
Yeah, that was his bodyguard, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, he was the bodyguard of a guy who got shot by Saran Saran. Oh my God. Dude, I think he's finally out, by the way, Saran Saran.
Really?
He's like, yeah.
Did
I
that
think he's-
happen?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god. But many of the groups that are hostile to him in New York, they felt like they were just showing up he was showing up in their backyard. And they came ready. There's a truck platform that he was standing on, and people are just yelling from the sides. And there are people from National Organization for Women, ACT UP, Moral Resistance, and they had signs that said, "Robert, son, be gone."
Nice.
And God isn't a bigot. Why are you?
Oh, hell yeah. I like a punchy
yeah.
slogan.
Yeah. Because at this point, the AIDS crisis is happening. And, you know, Reagan's not doing anything about it. And Robertson definitely not going to do anything about it if somehow.
Was he part of that camp that was like, this is God's judgment on this
Oh,
group
yeah.
of people?
I would-
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the AIDS activists, they accuse him of wanting to round up HIV-positive people with the Hitlerian proposals of tattooing. That's really scary.
That is so sinister.
Yeah.
It's amazing that all these guys that do this live until their mid-90s and die quietly in their sleep. Like, that's like the one guarantee you get when you get a fucking zealot like that.
On a bed that cost $1 million.
Right, exactly.
But the campaign is just shocked that people are coming and protesting them when they launch in Bed-Stuy, and they think they need to start busing supporters in. They're going to get 12 buses, and only 4 buses have shown up, and the people were scared to show up in Bed-Stuy because they're coming from these like white enclaves, and like there was a Chinese church who I guess was conservative, and they got them to come. And as someone from Robertson campaign said, the Chinese feared the black community in general, and that's why they didn't show. And
Expert political analysis. You gotta pay the big bucks for that.
Yeah.
Chinese people are afraid of black people.
right. So that's really the best highlight to me of the 1988 Republican primary is that
Was it like a
Robertson
wet fart, man? Like, did it ended before it started, kind of thing? Like, how many months was he in the race before he's like, all right?
He wins a couple states.
Oh, he
but-
won a couple states.
Yeah.
because he had name recognition. He had a kind of a cool logo. It's for an 80s.
That is kind of cool. It's super. It's almost like 10 type. You know what I mean? Like 1910 style photography with like a very modern. What would you call that? Outline.
right.
It's
Yeah,
good
There's
word
a cross.
processing.
Holy shit! A moral America with the O has a cross.
Oh, I
through
think
it.
we were talking about the one on top.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Yeah, you must have been like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Yeah, Robertson 88. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the Robertson 88 logo I think is good. Yeah, I think
It looks like a Pabst Blue Ribbon kind of.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
logo. Yeah.
Definitely, or like a butter brand. Something like that. I'd eat whatever that is.
Right.
No, and the other one is I have a pin, and it's a picture of him looking terrible. He looks mean and sad, and then he's surrounded by a green that's horrible and looks kind of environmentalist, and like you said, the 10 type in the cross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy looks like he's never not been in a suit, honestly. His entire life. He goes to the beach in a suit.
Sometimes he does wear a Cosby sweater.
But early on in his campaign, Norman Lear, the TV producer, has founded People for the American Way, and they release a report on Pat Robertson called Extremist with a Baby Face. And they talk about some of his positions, which obviously are vehemently anti-gay and anti-freedom of religion, really. But there is one position that's kind of extreme in a good way, and this has been forgotten, and this is something politicians should pick up in general in America. a debt jubilee. Because if you're taking the Bible pretty literally, they do talk about just forgiving debts every now and again.
It's like every 50 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're really due for a jubilee.
Yes, geez, yeah.
And he says, we have...
I'm going to guess there's some student loans sitting on this couch. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the only one.
That might make sense. Yeah. He's some loans of his own, actually.
Yeah.
That's probably what it's really about. Is he owes some fucking loan shark a ton of money.
Right. He's like, hey, listen, we should forgive everyone's debts. First me, and then
but at this point, the world has $10 trillion in debt, and they want to write down third world debt. He says because these guys can't pay it, and let's just end this cycle. And hey, that's a good plan to me.
Yep.
But maybe the reason, he knows it's never going to happen, so that's why he can.
It's so pie in the sky, and like it would never work campaign wise, like because your donors are all in the finance system, you know what I mean, and like that would be anathema to them.
And George Bush is like, I've had people killed over ideas like that.
right, yeah.
The only jubilee we have now is that annoying YouTube series, where the people do the annoying debates, possibly to get money to pay off their student loans.
Yeah,
that's maybe why it's called that. But he calls Reagan weak on the Soviet Union. And he makes some controversial statements where he lashes out at not just Ronald, but Nancy Reagan for pushing her husband to appease the Soviet Union in order to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And then he lashes out at the Reagan cabinet and accuses them of cozying up to the Eastern liberal establishment.
So he was kind of McCarthyite. He was like commie, red hunter type deal.
Definitely.
And McCarthyism is sort of where the evangelical movement came from. They were a little bit quiet in like the 30s and 40s during the New Deal, and they'd been embarrassed by like the Scopes monkey trial a little bit. Even though we talk, and then they come back to do McCarthyism because communism is not religious.
Right.
And he wants to give tax breaks to moms who choose to stay home and raise their kids.
The trad wife movement on Instagram.
Yeah, but now this is the crowning jewel of the Biden administration is a child tax credit.
Right.
It started as a right-wing idea.
To a certain extent, I don't think the child care tax credit said that you should stay home. And raise your kids.
That's true. But it is like kind of promoting natalism, which I'm not. I have no problem with the child tax credit.
It's basically like a child tax credit instead of like free daycare and pre-K and stuff and free health care.
Right.
Like, okay, we'll just give you a little money to take care of your kids. So it's a little more conservative in that way.
Yeah, that's true. It's not like we're not going to build institutions. We're going to bribe you to not have a revolution.
Yeah. But in the polls, he's been beginning at 4%, and then he climbs up to 8%, and still never beating undecided, which consistently that is the second place contender.
Apathy and confusion. The president, vice presidential candidates.
That would win every time. But
Bush definitely ends up winning by being not Dukakis and not Dole. Bob Dole's the other guy involved in this.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. Bob Dole's like famously boring.
Yeah, we'll have to do him at some point, but man, that's going to be a snoozer.
Oh no, I'm pumped. Yeah, I think that's going to be great.
Yeah, Freddie's going to go off on that one.
I mean, 16-year-old me had kind of a Bob Dole obsession, so
that's funny.
Interested, but
I think that sentence has never been uttered by anyone else. It's a very unique sentence.
Yeah, I guess maybe if you're like a Republican from Kansas.
Right, maybe so.
This is crazy because you were 16 in 2007. This was 11 years after he lost.
Yeah. No, I had a weird...
He was looking through the cracked rearview mirror back at Bob Dole.
But the real thing that hurts him too is his unfavorability rating. His polls showed that only 28% of Republicans had a favorable opinion of Pat Robertson. 62% had an unfavorable view, which was the worst figures for any candidate in the race. And he has an ad where he says he can complete the Reagan agenda and is really playing for Iowa caucus. There are a lot of evangelicals there. His organization has given money to Iowa farmers at the expense, actually, of farmers from surrounding states. They've given like aid to those farmers. to help for the Iowa caucus, and that's probably a reason for his unfavorability.
Dude, this is the most short-sighted campaign of all time. It's like, all right, get 3 million signatures, spend all your money on that, and only focus on one state, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. But he runs ads on like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune.
It's got to be a whiplash, like
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, his unfavorables are crazy because it's like either you watch the 700 Club and give him money, or you don't like him. That's kind of him through his whole life.
Yeah, he's so polarizing, like just by who he, the nature of what he does, which is condemning broad swaths of the country every night on his television program.
But I think he runs like infomercials. Like he has like half an hour commercials even that he pays to run. Overall, he does a lot of the Perot stuff, or Perot copies him a lot because he does announce on Larry King, do half an hour commercials, only get white Christians to vote for you. And he even at some point says he may appoint Perot as the Secretary of Defense, possibly to go rescue the POWs or some weird POW MIA thing.
Yeah.
So Ross Perot was not running this time around.
No.
I thought 92 was
92.
like when
Perot's going to run, but this is
yeah.
like the proto. He's kind of copying Pat Robertson.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
And even though he's not like a Bible guy explicitly, he's friends with Robertson, and he's
a Texas oil man. Right?
Yeah.
Like you got to be
right.
You have to have the Bible somewhere in your house, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the same type of people.
Right. Yeah.
But he has in the setting up the Michigan caucus, he has a precinct delegate system where people run to be delegates, and they're knocking on doors. And his organization, the Freedom Council, does do a pretty good job organizing people to accrue delegates. But officially, he doesn't win the Michigan caucus. But that's...
It becomes messy, yeah. Something gets messy with it, and he thinks he won, but officially he doesn't end up winning. But it is kind of a little bit of a bump that he gets that close.
Yeah, and this is like kind of a straw poll thing, right? Or...
Then there's also the Iowa straw poll that he wins.
Right.
This is a legit. Okay, for whatever reason, Michigan moves up and they want to be the first, ahead of even Iowa. And to be first, you have to be a caucus because New Hampshire gets the first primary. And Robertson organizes so well that he almost wins. And this is earlier than the one that Jesse Jackson wins. I think the Republicans and Democrats have it at different times. Because the Jesse Jackson one is in like May, is in like March, and this one is in like January.
So Jesse Jackson ran on for the Democratic primary
Yeah.
in '88. Wow, this is interesting. So
Yeah.
like the religious elements of both parties are like starting to flare up more.
Right.
And religion and politics the lines are blurring.
Yeah. And Pat always needs to be a victim, so he complains that Jesse is being treated better for his religious stuff than Pat is being.
Oh, yeah.
Damn. But he does, in one of the debates, make a backhanded compliment to Bush, where he calls him the greatest vice president in American history, and then offers him to continue being vice president again when Pat is elected.
Wow. Yeah.
The main guy. And he does get a bump a bit after one of the first debates, and then...
That's basically what Seward said to Lincoln, right? He was like, "Yo, you can be my vice president if you want,"
Is that... I'm not...
That sounds right. Yeah. I'm the 1800s guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That does. Yeah. A lot of them. Wanted to be instead of Lincoln. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they were like, "We like your vibe, so you can come aboard."
Yeah.
Lincoln was like, "I'm just tall. I'm going to take this." Yeah.
Right.
There's a funny... He's asked in one of the debates, will you have a religious test for your cabinet? And he says no, because constitutionally I'm not supposed to, but I will have conservatives, and it will be diverse, women, blacks, and possibly Asiatics.
That's so Trumpian. The Asians love me, The Asiatics, man. That sounds like you can like picture a bunch of like generals around a map, like being like, "We have to go for the Asiatics."
Yeah.
But yeah, pre-1990, people would use the word with the O, like Oriental rugs.
Right.
So Asiatics was him trying to be woke at that point.
Oh, interesting.
Good for him.
I think if you use that term now, people would react with pure confusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
What the fuck are you talking about?
There's an alternate reality where that is instead of Asian, it's Asiatic, and that's what you're supposed to say.
That's true. Yeah.
I kind of want to live in that world, but
it does seem to be in the same language bubble as Caucasian. Caucasian and Asiatic seem like somewhat related,
right?
And then the white guys who go to Japan would be the Asiatics.
Hey, come on. Yeah.
But
I just got back from Thailand. No, I'm just kidding. I really did though. Yeah.
But one of the debates he talks about privatizing Amtrak and the postal.
It kind of already is, but yeah, the postal service is. Have you guys taken Amtrak? It's like $400. You know what I mean? Like
I used to take it when I was like going between New York and DC more, and it wasn't usually that. It was like 100.
Yeah,
or like
it's 400 if you like wait till the last minute. You know
okay, yeah.
The non-Acela, which is like half an hour longer, is a lot cheaper. But the Acela is like not that fast and costs. Yeah, it does tend to cost a lot.
It's crazy.
So it's like it seems like it's been infiltrated by private equity or something, just based on those prices. But yeah, the post office, conservatives have been trying to destroy the post office since like the New Deal. Seemingly,
yeah.
So yeah, the post office, Amtrak, and then Department of Education are things that he wants to privatize, get rid of, and they're kind of happening now. So his agenda is finally being enacted a couple of years after he died.
Didn't the Department of Education only come about a couple of years before this campain happened? Like it wasn't
like 79, 80.
Yeah,
so, Carter.
Yeah, they were trying to get rid of it since it existed. Yeah,
yeah, it's like the ACA. Today.
Yeah. But he's asked about the deficit, and he says the government needs to be big like a business and have a core mission, and then cut anything that does not cut that core mission. And he's asked defense. Does that include our massive military? And he does say, we can maybe trim that a little bit. But
that's how you get shot in the head by. That's always a dog whistle for welfare programs and social security.
Yeah, I did have an issue with him in these debates. He looks and kind of sounds like Jeb Bush. That is his flaw in these debates.
Right. So there's two of them on stage.
Oh, yeah.
But this happens while he's in the midst of campaigning, running for the nomination. There's a huge scandal that breaks about Jim Baker, husband of Tammy Faye Baker, and Pat has to respond to it. What happens?
Yeah, Jim is, they're stealing money. I think he's also sleeping with dudes. Jim is doing all kinds of things. The big thing with Pat Robertson is every other evangelical preacher is like getting caught in a scam or a weird sex scandal, and Pat doesn't do that. But then he's worked with all these other guys, and they constantly get in trouble during his campaign. First Baker and then Swaggart. And he just has to address it, and all people are like, oh, these televangelists, they're like evil con artists. I don't want one to be president. And that is going to hurt him.
Guilty by association. Tammy Faye. There was like a musical that just came out on Broadway about that whole thing. Yeah, it didn't do well and it closed. But that's kind of back in the cultural zeitgeist a little bit. These, the Righteous Gemstones is out right now.
Yeah,
I think they had like an amusement park that was a scam. It's a little bit like the Christian Fire Fest. Is like what Jim Baker is kind of like that.
And while this is happening, Oral Roberts gives and this is from one of the books we read.
Pat Robertson, A Life.
Yeah. Oral Roberts gives one of the strangest proclamations in the history of religious broadcasting. February 1987, Roberts announced that God has spoken to him and said that unless his ministry gets $8 million by March 87, God's going to call him home.
To Oral Roberts' home or Pat Robertson?
I think to the sky, the God's home.
I know, but who's he talking about? Is he talking about himself, Oral Roberts?
Oral Roberts, yeah.
So Oral Roberts is saying God's going to call himself. Is he talking? Is Oral Roberts talking about Pat Robinson, or is Oral Roberts talking about? Oh, I see.
It's just happening in the zeitgeist.
I see.
So Oral Roberts is the West Coast Pat Robertson.
I see. Yeah, there's a university named after him.
Yeah. So basically, Oral Roberts being an asshole makes Pat Robertson look bad. Even if Pat Robertson's not directly involved, it's all just like bad PR.
Yeah, that is so. That's like that's cult leader type language.
Yeah. And did you want to finish the story with that?
Yeah, sure. So he says he's going to basically be killed unless you get my church.
$8 million, dude. There's that $8 number.
Got to pick 7. This is more biblical.
Yes.
And then the televangelists get totally ridiculed in the media. And Oral Roberts went to the top of the prayer tower on the campus of Oral Roberts University to await God coming down and plucking him up. And the drama ends when a dog track owner who's does not follow Oral Roberts, is not an evangelical. he gives the money. He gives the $8 million and then says that Oral Roberts, you need to go see a shrink.
Whoa. This is for your medical treatment. Yeah.
Well, so this means that you could make like more than $8 million a year owning a dog track, because that's like a lot of money to give.
In the
Unless you're like,
80s,
you got to be
people did
raking in the
not
money.
have a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah.
I could see dog track owner.
He must have owned more than one dog track.
Yeah.
That's wow.
Yeah, there was no FanDuel. You had to go find a dog track and bet. Yeah.
So yeah, that guy was probably mobbed up, dude. So yeah, which is not surprising.
Yeah. In Iowa, he finishes second after Bob Dole, who wins it, and Bush comes in third. So he does beat out the eventual nominee in Iowa. This is kind of the height of the campaign. Tom Brokaw calls him a televangelist afterwards in an interview, and Pat says, I'm not a televangelist. I'm a TV broadcaster who owns a big network. Kind of potato. And he says...
That talks about God.
Yeah. Just evangelizing on the TV. But Brokaw, he accuses Tom Brokaw of doing bigotry. And obviously... Tom
Bigotry
Brokaw,
of one.
against televangelists, not even Christians.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
This is a low point for George H.W. Bush, maybe his whole life, because he loses to Dole, loses to Robertson, he loses to others even. Yeah, he loses to everybody. So he's really on the ropes at this point.
Yeah. He and Pat Robertson is just, this is again really where he starts hitting the media and saying he's being treated unfairly, and that's his biggest weakness in the campaign. And when going to New Hampshire, he says, I am the only conservative who was able to win the presidency. And even goes to Dixville Notch, which has 34 voters to make his case. And he does have the support of a former New Hampshire governor who gets in on some ads that are attacking Bush.
Yeah, they're saying he can't tell a missile from a warhead. I honestly can't either. That is what's confusing about it. But yeah, they want to.
That is the same thing, right? A warhead is a kind of a missile.
Maybe it was a trap.
Is it on the end of the missile? Is that
Yeah.
where I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a trap. Maybe it's a trap to get him in.
I guess. Okay, no. The warhead is the thing that explodes, and the missile is the
the
flights.
payload carrier.
Yeah.
I just stay away from the whole missile. Yeah, I don't work on identifying the parts because it's about to explode and kill me.
But South Carolina is could be a place where he could maybe rejuvenate his campaign. After New Hampshire, where he gets 0 delegates. He's fifth place. He's behind Bush. He's behind Dole. He's even behind Pete DuPont, who's running at that point.
Of like the DuPont fortune?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I think he's a political figure.
He probably wanted to lower taxes, and they love that in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Right. And so Bush is starting to get a little more evangelical before the Southern primaries. He's saying he accepts Jesus.
Oh, he's using it up, you know?
Yeah.
He accepts,
Little Jesus there and there, yeah.
yeah. Jesus is his Lord and Savior, he says, and he taps a network of churchgoers in the South, and that kind of poisons the well against Pat Robertson's own people, his use of them.
Yeah, because basically, if everyone in the church is into one candidate, you could maybe have a table and like do stuff and like promote it. But if there's 2 candidates, then it's like, well, we can't have a political debate in the church. We got to shut it all down.
Yeah.
But Pat needs those churches to get people out because Bush is very well organized. He spent 8 years sucking up to Reagan, not saying much, and getting ready for this run.
Yeah, and I would imagine like, you know, Reagan has this massive political machine behind him, and they can just like plug and play with George Bush.
To an extent, Reagan is not as supportive as Bush would like.
Oh, really?
But
Reagan's got to be like dementia-ridden at this point.
Yeah,
Like, the Alzheimer's has got to be kicking his ass.
Yeah.
At
He's
this
out to
point
lunch.
in time. Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah.
But there's there's one churchgoer says they prefer Bush and want a table for him because this has become a political competition. And it's like shut down it's just, you know, churches should not be this political. So they're kind of uncomfortable with it. And they're just like, let's just go with Bush and get it over with.
Yeah, like if you even have one person for Bush, and then even if everyone else loves Pat, then you're not going to have the debate.
Right. And then there is a scandal, the Jimmy Swaggart scandal. Who is this guy?
He was paying for swag because he was sleeping with a lot of sex workers. And then Pat is like, "Oh, Bush,
Jesus was friends with prostitutes. Dude.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, yeah, I know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, they used to be cool. Yeah, Jesus was cool. These guys are not cool. So Pat is like, "Oh, Bush, you got this release, this Swaggart scandal." I'm not sure exactly how he would have done it, but Bush is a guy you can believe anything about because he was head of the CIA. And Bush is like, "By sundown tonight, I'd like to see him stand up to like a Southern gentleman and either present the evidence or apologize to me." And that kind of, yeah.
One of Robertson's supporters, or
This is Bush says that.
about who is Jimmy Swaggart though?
Oh, sorry. Oh, he was a televangelist.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Who supported Robertson?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was sleeping with a bunch of prostitutes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Were they male or female prostitutes?
I need to look into it. I'm gonna try to find the video. Yeah, maybe there's some VHS.
Because sometimes you get the double whammy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get the-
Oh man, what a name, Jimmy Swaggart.
I know. That would be a great that's like lends itself to a campaign so well, having swag in your name. Like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But there's some stuff that he says too that gets him in trouble about nuclear missiles in North Korea, and he also doesn't know the exact location of the hostages in Beirut. And
So what it is he says he had a prophecy that told him where the hostages were,
okay.
and he got a revelation, and then they're like, "Well, you can't prove this," and it seems like bullshit.
Okay. But Bush does end up winning South Carolina 48-21, beating Dole, and Robertson gets 19%, and now he's kind of on his last legs since Bush has the superior Super Tuesday operation, and it's just so many states and really hard to be able to organize. So Bush beats him by 10 points in Southern primaries. Then Robertson drops out, and Bush wins with every dirty trick in the book, which he'll go on to use against Dukakis. And later on, Robertson gives Bush delegates, but one staffer isn't allowed to be there because he did so many dirty tricks. But he does win Alaska and Washington State, which is hard to imagine. I mean, Alaska, I understand. You have people like Sarah Palin out there, but Washington State, I don't think of as as an evangelical hub.
There's weird. I think I even saw something. There's like rumors that his supporters stayed later at the caucus and like made it so he won. Like it's a little. There might be a little shadiness. There's a lot of shadiness in these caucuses in this primary.
Yeah. But according to his biography, he lost because if he was to win the election or at least receive a serious hearing for his views, Robertson needed to change his message and make it appeal to those who did not share his religious belief. That proved to be the one thing that he could not do, was faced with so intertwined with his political beliefs that he often couldn't even explain his ideas without resorting to religious language. And he finishes third in popular votes and delegates behind Bush and Dole. And Dole does stay in a bit longer, but by Super Tuesday, after that, the primary race is basically over. It turns even Republicans don't like, in this case anyway, someone saying that you have to agree with me because of God,
right?
At least at this point,
it's so fascinating. There's so many, political figures, nefarious people that make an evil person seem less evil, you know? So like we've gotten Reagan, we've gotten honestly, it's debatable whether like Ted Cruz would have been worse for the country than Trump, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a capable, more sinister, malevolent force. I don't know if you've ever seen that thing of Ted Cruz talking in college about how he wants to dominate other people in like the world and stuff like that. So yeah, Pat Robinson was the Ted Cruz to you know what I mean? George Bush Sr.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he does have an impact on the race. Like you get Dan Quayle, who's like an unqualified religious moron who Bush picks to kind of appease that Robertson base.
Oh yeah. The Sarah Palin move.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's even a sexist thing where they're like, "Oh, he's handsome, so women will vote for him."
Oh right.
We don't need to pick a woman or anything.
Yeah. Ladies think with their twat now.
But there's a line he gives at the '88 convention speech. He says, "There is a word to describe us. It's a C word." Everyone's like, what?
The C word.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of, and then he just, he starts using a British accent.
Right.
And he says, we are conservatives and we are proud of it. And, but we.
That could have been Christian. That could have been like cancer, anything. Yeah.
But he does serve as a surrogate for Bush in the fall campaign. He brings up Willie Horton all the time, brings up that Dukakis is a card-carrying ACLU member, and the thing about the Pledge of Allegiance. He accuses Dukakis of never using the G word, which again, people are like, what?
Yeah.
God in this case.
Yeah.
But Bush does very well with evangelicals and is the first president to win despite losing the Catholic vote, interestingly. And Robertson, only evangelical conservative to run for president in the 20th century. I would count Bush as, I would count that as 20th century still, but the Bush Jr.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But he's definitely the first one. And he talks about his campaign and says that the reason for his candidacy, it's been fulfilled in the activation of tens of thousands of evangelicals who have now gotten into government. So it did have an impact that we're still living with today. That the pro-Christian sort of nationalist doctrine is like a mainstream part of the Republican Party.
Yeah, his campaign's a lot like Jesus. It gets stronger once it's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's there's this two theories. Like one, like Bernie Sanders is just like people's frustration, like mollifier, you know what I mean? Like he can give voice to us, but never actually have any institutional power,
Right.
And then the other theory is that he's pulling the Democratic Party to the left. And depending on how I've slept that night and what I've eaten, I'm like one or the other, you know what I mean? Like I go back and forth of which one I believe, I'm like, oh, maybe we wouldn't never had the child care tax credit or the bailouts in COVID or like the, stimulus payments if Bernie didn't exist. Or maybe they would have done that anyway because of the populist rage was going to boil over anyway. Mm-hmm. But with him, I think it's unquestioned. Like I don't think you have the same on the Republican side where it just seems to just pull them further to the right every time. You know what I mean? No matter what, like it's just like, all right, well, we'll go further right if it will appeal to you racist bigots, religious bigots.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the weird thing researching this pod. It's like, Reagan was not that far right. Like, he would still raise taxes. He appointed O'Connor. Yeah, so it's...
Right. So, but he, like, I guess...
He set the tone.
Yeah, he spoke right, but governed more centrist. Mm-hmm. And now it's just all the way right.
Right.
Yeah. But then after the Reagan era and after Bush, and the evangelicals very upset with Bush. The whole conservative movement is very upset with him as president. For a whole number of things, things like civil rights. But the Christian Coalition is kind of formed around this time. Pat and Ralph Reed build it up from the grassroots, and they say it's time to say loud and clear, Christians are Americans too. Ralph Reed says, in 1990, in 10 years, we will be the most powerful force in American politics, which does turn out to be true.
Yeah, and they get an evangelical president in 10 years.
Yeah. And
two wars and an economic calamity, and they got everything they wanted.
Yeah.
Holy wars.
So he's got all those names from the signatures and everything. He has a big mailing list, and they turned that into the coalition. And the peak of the coalition, I think, is 1994, and then it starts to fade, and Robertson fades and becomes more of a sideshow. But it then forms all these other orgs that then have become what has power right now.
Right. I'll be curious if they can wield this, though. Like, I think politicians think that they can control these dark and malevolent forces in society, and the answer is no, I think, ultimately.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't know.
It's scary, definitely. Yeah. They won. They're kind of in control despite
But the thing about growing up Christian is you realize none of these people, it's still that kind of like priest and flock mentality. Like they don't read the Bible, you know what I mean? So it's whatever these leaders say the Bible is, you know what I mean? And it can change on a dime, and then they will go in that direction.
Yeah.
So incredibly easy to manipulate, but hard to have lasting control over it. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, they do have, to the point about the flock, they have these voter guides that they're like, oh, these are nonpartisan, but they're just like, they just tell all these thousands, if not millions of people who to vote for in all these different races, and they just the hardest right person. And that's why, for the reason for a lot of governance throughout the country.
And a bit,
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so a big thing is you got to get the donations too. So you got to get people afraid, so they'll donate. That's the whole Pat Robertson business model. And these voter guides have that because they have warnings. They say that there'll be candidates with a feminist agenda that encourages women to leave their husbands, kill their children, practice witchcraft, destroy capitalism. Oh, nice, and become lesbians.
Dude, there's a lot of lesbian merch out there, man. You can still...
Oh yeah.
I guess he was looking pretty closely when he was here in Bed-Stuy.
Right.
The way things are going. Yeah, he's also this got this diamond business, which comes up in the best democracy money can buy, where he's said to he'll sit on these planes going from America to Congo, and he's just looking at these diamonds, reading about the diamond markets, not really cracking a Bible, just kind of focused on this stuff. So there's a lot of shady shit going on with Pat Robertson.
He's every anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. He controls diamonds and the weather.
It's interesting, that you can have a religious studies or something like that, because no new religious texts are getting written. It's all the interpretation of the same, 700 pages of the book.
Same canon.
Yeah, exactly. So once you've read it 10 times, I feel like you can start looking into diamonds or protein shakes. And I was telling you, in my brief research on this, Liberia's president said he was his closest business partner in terms of gold acquisition,
Yeah.
And he said that in The Hague for crimes against humanity. Yeah. It's and Pat Robertson, ultimate Trump move was I never talked to him. I don't know. I don't know that guy. Yeah.
That is very biblical in a sense.
Right.
Be doing diamond and gold mining with people in those countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a big Mobutu connection. We're gonna get into on the Patreon.
Yeah, but he's a very strong connection in that he develops throughout the '90s with, even though he's not a fan of the elder Bush, big fan of the son, George W. Bush, and he supports him in 2000 and helps him get over the hump in that primary process.
Yeah, he's not a fan of McCain. Yeah, even in 07, I think he supports Giuliani in that one, even though Giuliani's not religious.
That's the strangest one, is that by 2007, Bush is deeply unpopular. We've had 2 terrible wars, and the right is on the defensive. It looks like the Republicans are definitely going to lose. And who do we put up? I guess Rudy Giuliani, because he's a popular guy.
Right.
Forget all the shit about gay marriage or just gay rights and abortion. We can get this Italian coastal Catholic as a nominee because he's so Islamophobic.
Yes.
That's what we need right now. And that's the one thing, is just the fear of more 9/11s is the only way we can kind of get by and have another Republican victory.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so. I don't know if you ever read or watch Chris Hedges, but he's war is a force that gives us meaning. You know, there's nothing.
That's a good point
beyond that.
But yeah, he does have a website where you can leave a comment on the
can I make
site?
a suggestion to you guys?
Yeah, that's it. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna.
Well, I was gonna say donate all your Patreon proceedings to Pat Robertson's foundation.
Oh yeah.
Hey, maybe he's right, and we're gonna die, and then we're gonna get you did the right thing there.
We are trying to get
donated to Pat.
We are trying to get to 700 subs.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. That's funny.
But what should we put on there? I'll type it out here.
So you can leave a comment.
Yeah, you can just comment anything.
Yeah, you'd be Bed-Stuy misses you.
Bed-Stuy misses you.
We told you it was Bed-Stuy ride or die. Now you're dead.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna post it.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, we like to talk about at the end like what the world would be like if somehow Pat Robertson got by and won the nomination and then managed to beat Dukakis in '88. Could he have done that? Pretty difficult to win those primaries, as you know. You didn't have Reagan had been an actor, but he had been governor first, so you didn't have people who were total amateurs just going straight to the presidency at that point.
I think he could have beaten Dole. Let's say something comes out, Iran-Contra, Bush is out. And then I think Robertson could have beaten Dole. Dole was also wasting money, didn't know what he wanted to do. Pat has more riz. Yeah, I think Pat could have beaten Dole. I don't know if he would have beaten Dukakis, but obviously for the hypothetical, we would say that.
Yeah.
I think it definitely would have been a whole lot closer if it had been him and Dukakis.
Oh, sure.
Because there were a lot of moderates who supported Bush who didn't really care about the religious stuff, and that they would have been turned off. But if he somehow won, what the hell would I mean? Honestly, I think in a way it would have been for the best because he just would have been a terrible president and would have been like America would have moved would have been like we just moved so far right. Maybe it's time for the pendulum to swing back. But then again, that's what people said about Trump. That's what I probably thought about Trump.
It's that accelerationism thing where you're like, oh, let the decay happen. It's like a Marxist perspective where you like bring about the revolution, you know? But I think it's that bullshit argument where like, well, the arts get better because of repression.
Yeah.
It's like, absolutely not. We would have had like some of the most worst like television programs because that's what I think he would have gone after is like these culture war crusades in media. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of what kind of defined that era of like, you know, the real world, like reality TV comes about in that era, like grunge, Marilyn Manson, Eminem, all that stuff probably would have taken longer to develop because there would have been more harsh restrictions. Like, remember during Bill Clinton's second term, he campaigned on like putting TV chips on the back. Yeah. It's like, so that would have been like, it would have been all of that. It would have been all of this meaningless nonsense, but that would have been his entire platform. And meanwhile, the war machine would have churned on and like all this other shit. But I think I wonder if like Kosovo would have been bombed under. I don't know.
Yeah, it would have been cool if he would have been like, oh, Gorbachev's weak and then we invade or something. Maybe he conquers Russia.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, yeah, this is a trap. They're sucking us in. We're going to win the Cold War for real.
Well, but it would have been like maybe right as the Cold War is winding down, right as the Soviet Union is collapsing, and then we have this invasion, and he can say, we did it. We conquered Russia, and he becomes a god emperor.
I do hope he could have been like an evangelical vaccine where we see how bad it is in a small way where everything still is, the institutions are still there to stop him, and then we never do it again. Also, it's pre-Fox News, so it was harder for Republicans to get away with stuff if there was big scandals.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You don't have them like laundering the story, you know, every time.
Like Watergate couldn't have happened with Fox News existing.
Oh,
because
true.
At some point, the Republicans do turn on Nixon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And they would have never turned on him, you know. But yeah, I really do think it's only cool to be an evangelical Christian when it's in like opposition to what they perceive as the dominant ideology in the nation. So I feel like in a certain way the faith would have started to corrode because Pat Robinson is not, he doesn't walk on water, you know what I mean? Right. He probably would have been a lame as fuck dude that everybody would have to see all the time. So like no one's like kids would be like, yeah, I'm going to become a Christian. You know what I mean? Like, so it might have hurt in the long run. Like you said, kind of like shown everybody that it was bullshit and then we could move beyond it quicker.
Oh, that would have been nice, yeah. There is an interesting thing that basically Trump is basically a televangelist because he flies around on private jets and he's a rich guy who promises you the world. So yeah, and very much we do have Pat Robertson as president now, just in the form of Trump.
Yeah. Essentially.
Yeah,
with like a similar problem with vocabulary, just not being able to like speak without referencing, you know, real estate instead of God. Yeah.
Well, it's a fascinating thing because Trump has been able to take the evangelical vote and really consolidate it, but without being one clearly. Right. So to have an actual evangelical win, I think would be very tough today, and that's I think a legacy of Pat Robertson. is they establish themselves as a constituency, but we're not able to establish cultural hegemony, even though they now have political power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still that thing where they can credibly be victims. You know what I mean? They're like the secular cultural is still coming at us, and I wonder if that credibility would have been destroyed if Pat Robertson had won.
Yeah. All right. Any closing thoughts on this guy?
He might be one of the worst people we did, but also one of the most impactful losers.
Yeah. I feel like that's a good way to put it. Cool. I'd say God bless America and protect our troops. No. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for doing the show. Davidson, where can people find you and your stuff?
I'm on YouTube at Davidson Boswell, Patreon show there as well. And then I'm always making videos on Instagram at Davidson Boswell. And then my Substack is starting to do well. Everything is just under Davidson Boswell. You can find me all over the internet.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Vanquished. If you want the full thing, because there is more, please go to patreon.com/thevanquished, where you can get the rest of this episode as well as our full episode catalog. You can support our work as well as annoy us in the comments.